In this section, we'll look at the emergence of Calvin Coolidge as president and take the discussion through the 1924 election. Calvin Coolidge became president when Harding died, and Coolidge had been the governor of Massachusetts prior to becoming vice president, and you might recall that he was the one who had helped quash the 1919 Boston police strike. Coolidge provided quite the contrast to Harding personally. Whereas Harding was good looking, Coolidge, one observer said, quotes, looks like he was sucking a lemon when he smiles. Coolidge was said to have slept more than any president except Ronald Reagan, who famously took naps every afternoon. When one person remarked when Coolidge finally died in 1933 that Coolidge was dead, the humorist said, how could they tell? Reagan, by the way, kept a picture of Coolidge on his desk in the Oval Office. Anyway, Coolidge learned of Harding's death while he was on a family visit to Plymouth, Vermont. By flickering lantern light, there's no electricity, he took the oath of office from his father, a local magistrate. Coolidge was serious, withdrawn, quiet, and very intelligent. Quite the contrast, as I say, to Harding. As Coolidge finished Harding's term, more and more of the Harding scandals were playing out before the public, which kind of hurt Coolidge getting started on his administration. The Republicans split over how to handle the Democratic criticism. The conservative old guard defended the wrongdoers and condemned the critics as Bolsheviks and communists. More of the progressive, reformist GOP demanded Coolidge get rid of people like Darty. Coolidge initially tried to ignore this scandal, but as they became more public, it was finally too much, and Coolidge fired Darty. But when the scandals were behind him, Coolidge did have a chance to put in his own people, claiming he needed to clean house, and he did put in a lot of professionally competent people. With the passing of Harding and the emergence of Coolidge, the GOP finally had a president intent upon conservatism. It was the ultimate defeat of the Teddy Roosevelt progressive side of the reformist side of the GOP. Coolidge appointed two cabinet secretaries who demonstrated conservative philosophy: Secretary of Treasury Andrew Mellon and Secretary of Commerce Herbert Hoover, who later would become president. These two men would set the tone for the economics of the remainder of the decade. Mellon and Hoover were proponents of traditional republicanism, the party of big business. What is good for business was good for America. Since the Civil War, the Republicans had basically a core set of policies that they tried to adhere to. A protective tariff, a higher tariff, which of course I've mentioned just a few minutes ago. They wanted to reduce taxes on corporations because the rich would invest the products and would create jobs and economic boom. This would later be termed supply-side economics. And they wanted to reduce government spending, especially in regard to health, welfare, and public works, and they were often concerned about the debt. As Secretary of Commerce, Hoover agreed with these policies but wanted to do more to help businesses. He got the Commerce Department to issue a number of reports regularly on the state of the economy to help guide business. He encouraged standardization in sizes and designs of business products. For example, tire sizes were standardized. And he even promoted what he termed associationalism, getting businesses to associate, that is, to coordinate, to pool reserves to investigate problems or to publicize products. It was voluntary, Hoover said. There should be no government activism, but Democrats were still worried that it was a monopoly, that they claimed it was a trust. But the Supreme Court was very conservative, and they agreed with Hoover that the associationalism was not unconstitutional. In a case, the United States versus the Maple Flooring Association, there was coordination among the businesses that made maple wood flooring, and it came to Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled that it was not a monopoly. And these type of Supreme Court decisions continued throughout the 1920s. Coolidge won the presidency in his own right in the 1924 election. By the 1924 election, Democrats were in disarray. Southern Democrats, demanded vigorous enforcement of prohibition. They liked prohibition. And Northerners, representing more urban district, more immigrant districts, they demanded the repeal of prohibition. Southern Democrats either supported or at least feared the Ku Klux Klan, while most Northern Democrats were either Catholics or foreign-born, and they opposed for everything the Klan stood for. You got to keep in mind that the KKK at this time still had a degree of respectability. Southerners demanded active assistance for farmers, while Northerners were more concerned with labor more. And so there was a real divide in the Democratic Party. Democrats took 103 ballots to nominate John Davis, a former ambassador to Great Britain and a distinguished corporate lawyer. At the 1924 Democratic Convention, they had tremendous problem agreeing on a platform, and as a matter of fact, a fight broke out and police had to be called. Meanwhile, Coolidge and his conservative allies dominated the fragment of the the Republicans who were reformists, the reformist wing that was still led by the former Wisconsin progressive governor Robert La Follette, who now was in the Senate. The disgruntled reformers then left, and they formed a separate party, officially organized as the Progressive Party. So it was the nation's sort of second progressive party when you think of the Age of Reform. It demanded nationalization of railroads, public ownership of water power, and no more injunctions against labor, things like that. On Election Day, November 4th, 1924, Coolidge won overwhelmingly, 15.7 million popular votes and 382 electoral votes to Davis's 8.4 million and 136 electoral votes, and finally La Follette's 4.8 million and 13 electoral votes, all from his La Follette's home state of Wisconsin. The results showed that Democrats' hope for the Progressive Party to pull enough votes away from the Republican Party was unfounded. The Republicans had virtually ignored Davis and concentrated fire on La Follette, whom they called communist. This kept many people away from the Progressive Party. And in any event, this election shows the nation was still firmly held by the conservative leaders. This concludes the section on the emergence of Calvin Coolidge.